Those Were the Days is filmed before a live internet audience.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your pilot, Audie, speaking, and we want to thank you for flying with Those Were the Days, the podcast that takes you on a wonderful flight through TV from yesterday while watching through the window of today. The holiday season has come and gone, but we're back in the skies talking about pilots again. And I don't mean flying a plane like me. No, but it looks like we will have clear and comfortable skies as we go through an endearing sitcom from the 90s. First, though, let me introduce you to our flight crew who will help us get through today's flight. Yes, this is a small plane, but they're all my co-pilot for the flight. First, we have Steven.
Well, it's time to pitch a new sitcom, but we're going to need a location. A bar? Come on, give me a challenge. An office? Far too limiting. A TV station? It's been done. I mean, everything's been done. I know. We'll base the show at a small regional airport in Nantucket. The show practically writes itself.
Next, we have Amy.
I hope you are all ready for a lot of New England facts because there's going to be a lot of New England facts.
And finally, we have Travis.
Look, if I've learned anything over the years, it's that celebrities are just as normal as you and me. Like recently, I was surprised to learn that Cary Grant collected his belly button lint in an egg carton, which I started doing in like the 5th grade. Sigourney Weaver and I are both avid petrologists. Igneous rocks are my favorite. And did you know former baseball player Stan Musial's favorite candy was Bit-O-Honey? Yeah, mine too.
I love Bit-O-Honey.
Nice. Okay, so high quality sound effects put aside. So today we're talking about the show Wings. In case you couldn't tell from our lovely intros. It is a sitcom about a small airport in the island town of Nantucket, Massachusetts, that ran for 8 seasons on NBC.
Baby.
But before we get into it, let's talk about everybody's history with Wings. Who wants to go first? What's your deal with Wings, Travis?
Boy, I remember watching a lot of Wings. I want to say reruns played on the USA Network, maybe. And so that's probably where I watched it the most. But it's where I know Tony Shalhoub. It's where I know Thomas Hayden Church, Tim Daly, Steven Weber, all of them I know from Wings. I don't remember watching a lot of it on NBC. I may have, but I definitely watched tons of reruns, and it was always just a fun show. So,
how about you, Steven?
Yeah, so I don't remember paying full attention to Wings, but I remember it being on TV with my parents. Like, it was one of those things, like maybe I'm on the floor coloring or doing something or running in and out of the living room, interrupting their TV watching time. But I remember Wings being around, and I remember when I would sit and watch it, I always enjoyed it. I always laughed at when the audience laughed, because, I mean, that's what you do when you don't understand what's going on. I had a great time with it. I don't remember anything about it other than leather jackets and that main, airport area where people hung out. That's all I remembered. So I had a lot of fun surprises between the episode that we didn't talk about on air and this episode. I have enjoyed learning more about Wings. I'll tell you that.
Yep. All right. What about you, Amy?
So, it being another locally based show and in the same extended universe as Cheers, it's like required New England viewing, right? Like it's just a thing.
sure.
My older sister absolutely adores Nantucket. So that was like, there's always that little bit of it too. So it's like, oh, great. Yeah. Yeah, it's what I know everyone from. Like when I saw Sideways, I was like, oh, it's Lowell. All right, sweet.
Yep.
Fantastic. Yes, this was definitely on in my house all the time.
Nice. Yeah, I kind of fall into, excuse me. I fall into Travis's ways of, I think, mostly watching it on USA reruns. Um, but yeah, just watching a lot of it, a whole lot of it, and like you guys, knowing everybody from it. Like I was telling somebody at work about it today, and he was asking me about the guy that played Lowell. Tom. I was like, yeah, Thomas Hayden Church. He was even in Tombstone. We were talking about the other day. He was like, oh yeah. So,
Mhm.
Tim Daly, man. So that guy will always be one of my favorite Superman actors because he was a voice of Superman.
Yep.
Yeah.
And just everybody else, it always comes back to Wings.
Mm-hmm.
That Tim
So-
Daly, I heard his name and I was like, where do I know that name from? It sounds really familiar, but he doesn't look familiar. And then I finally gave up and looked at, started to IMDb, and then it came to me. I was like, Superman! That's who he is! Tim Daly is
He-
Superman.
One other thing I need to shout out about Tim Daly. At one point, him and his son did short videos like on YouTube and stuff. Absolutely hilarious. Like, just hilarious. Like, they pulled in Brandon Routh and Nathan Fillion for a couple of them and would do like riffs on the superheroes they all played and stuff. It was great.
Oh, that's awesome.
So if you have a chance, go find those on YouTube. They're hilarious.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
great.
he also co-starred in a movie I love called Basic with John Travolta,
Oh, yeah.
and he's great in that. He was always good in things.
Mhm.
I always felt like he and Steven Weber deserved a larger following, like a bigger career than they had. They did stuff.
Mhm.
They've been active, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm
But
just sitting
for
here
now, we're
trying to
talking
find,
about-
Thomas Hayden Church in Tombstone because I can't remember who he was, but I see his
Oh.
face in my
He was
head.
one. Okay, he's one of the cowboys. He's the one that calls out Val Kilmer for being drunk. He's like, he's probably so drunk he's seeing double.
Oh,
When
okay.
Val Kilmer does have two guns, one for each of you.
Because I can see his face, but
Yep.
I just couldn't remember who he was. Also, he's had that face. I think he was born with old man face, since he
Yeah.
was like,
Mhm.
10 years old. He probably looked just like he did in Tombstone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He wears it so well.
Yeah, it's perfect.
All right, so Wings ran from April of 1990 to May of 1997 on NBC. Set in the fictional Tom Nevers Field Airport, small two-airline airport in Nantucket. And it focused on Joe and Brian Hackett, brothers, and their single-plane airline, Sandpiper Air. And since we've already dived into it, let's go ahead and talk about the rest of the cast. So we had Tim Daly as Joe Hackett, kind of straight man, nice guy. We had Steven Weber as his brother, Brian Hackett, who, in specifically this first episode, we figure out he's the not so straight-laced, responsible one, very carefree.
That's
Both-
the thing, right? Coming back to pilots, like a lot of these, like sometimes in things like Seinfeld, right? Like you get characters like Kramer that they kind of dialed up over time. In this one, they definitely they were like, all right, let's reel it in a little bit
Roll it
Yeah.
back.
because this is a bit much.
These two would never like each other if we keep this going. We
No.
got to bring it
Yeah.
down.
Mhm. Then we had Crystal Bernard as Joe and Brian's childhood friend, Helen Chappell. She runs the lunch counter at the airport, but dreams of being a symphony cellist. Which comes up
Not a
frequently
big
throughout the show.
symphony on Nantucket. I'm just,
Yeah.
it's not good weather, but it's very
Um,
damp. It's not good
yep.
for stringed instruments.
She also pulls the Monica card as having been fat before, and when we see her on the show, this is her.
Yeah, the
Her
90s
size now.
The
loved
90s
this
loved
nonsense.
just
They really
fat
did.
shaming everyone.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah.
was fun. Good times.
Yeah.
Good times, everyone. We have
gonna say,
grown
this-
as a society in some
At least
ways.
a little, yeah. We can at least go.
A little bit.
"Eh."
Yeah, we at least look
Yeah.
back and go, ooh, mistakes.
Yeah. Then we had Rebecca School as Faye Cochran,
Love her.
who's
Mhm.
the only other Sandpiper Air employee. Former flight attendant. She handles the ticket counter, baggage check, and flight announcements. And I love this that comes up throughout the series. She's been widowed 3 times, all to people named George.
Yeah.
I
All of her
love
husbands were named George.
looking through the IMDb too. It's like, yeah, her name's Faye Cochran, but her name is really Faye Evelyn Schlob Dumley DeVay Cochran.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
awesome that you would keep all your married names
keep
and
'em all.
just stack them.
Yep.
You know,
Mhm.
Collected 'em.
like you're playing
Yep.
Uno or
So
something.
you make a Tetris line, yeah.
You make a line. Once you get all of them across, it collapses.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Then you just pay.
Then
No
you
last
just Faye.
Then,
Faye.
then we had David Schramm as Roy Biggins.
I
So
love
he
him.
owns the competing airline Aeromass. It apparently has 7 planes, but has been unable to break into the charter flight biz. And when we said there's not that much fat shaming, oh wait, there's Roy,
Oh, yeah.
who is
Yeah.
a large white male.
Yeah.
And they don't make any jokes about that ever.
No.
But it's okay.
However, there is plenty else they make fun of Roy about.
Oh,
so-
yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna bring up like the first New England fact for a hot second here.
Bring it.
Because there is a local airline called Cape Air that goes to Nantucket.
Okay.
But the fact that you could have 8 planes that fly out, like that live on and are stationed out of Nantucket is 50 square miles. That's it. It's
Mhm.
50 square miles. You don't need 8 planes.
No.
That, and at one point Faye announces the nonstop flight to Boston. It's 20 minutes. Where are they going to stop? Did we
Mhm.
need to clarify that it was 20 minutes? Like that is a nonstop flight.
But it didn't stop at all, so it's got to be
sure
a
didn't.
nonstop. He is accurate. That's all.
I take the ferry.
I didn't
And
know
then-
Nantucket was so far off the coast there.
It's pretty far. I mean, not a lot of people like unless you're posh, you don't fly. Like if you're from anywhere near here, you don't fly. You take the ferry.
okay.
But if you're from like
Hmm.
New York, you might fly into Boston and then fly over, or fly into Hartford and then fly over.
I'm
but-
gonna have to get up into Nantucket and do some whaling. You know,
I
Hmm.
mean, yeah, they got real good lobster
Sure.
though.
like the
Real
old
good
days.
lobster.
Let's go into business. Go and collect whale blubber. Anybody?
My
wanna-
mom grew up in New Bedford, which is on the mainland side, but not, like in Nantucket adjacent. And she was a docent at the New England Whaling Museum. So
All
there
right.
you go.
There you go.
So I horrified my elementary school teachers, informing them what a Nantucket sleigh ride was.
Oh, okay. Well,
Oh.
am I gonna have
Do
to
you know
find
what a
that out
Nantucket sleigh?
later? Probably.
So if you're whaling and you harpoon the whale and you've got lines on the harpoon and the whale doesn't just like die, the whale
Or just
goes.
stop. Like it doesn't give up.
Right.
No,
yeah.
the whale goes and you hang on for dear life in your little boat that you've got your little harpoon boat, and that is a Nantucket sleigh ride
Oh, that's
until
awesome.
it gets tired and dies.
I mean, it's
There you go.
sad, but it's also it was the way we did things, so it's kind of awesome. Also,
They're called right whales because it's the right whale to kill.
that's right. That's what Captain
Okay.
Ahab said.
Yep.
You know.
There you go.
All right. And rounding out the cast, at least for this first episode, Thomas Hayden Church, who we talked about as Lowell Mather, the quote unquote dim-witted mechanic handyman that works at the airport for both airlines and anyone else willing to pay.
And it's just Lowell. I just love Lowell
I love
so
him.
Lowell was
much.
great.
Oh my gosh.
His
With
delivery
the cold
is
open with
just,
him and Joe, which we'll talk about, but dear Lord.
yeah, he
It's
is
like-
so good.
And he auditioned for the part of Brian, but got the part of Lowell, and I can't imagine him doing anything else.
No.
I mean, after seeing him in other stuff later on, like Sideways and whatnot, I could have seen him doing Brian, but
Right.
it's so hard to look back and be like, no, he's Lowell.
Exactly.
He plays that just so perfectly. Like the whole delivery of like when Brian says, you don't want to end up like Howard Hughes, locked in a hotel room, sitting on Kleenex, sucking applesauce through a straw. Wow. With all that money and his hobbies are the same as mine.
Mm.
Like it was just great.
He's basically Woody from Cheers.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
the same archetype, the like well-meaning, somehow competent at your job, idiot.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
He's a mechanical idiot savant, is what he
Mhm.
is.
And Thomas Hayden Church actually ended up leaving the show after season 6 because he got a gig on Fox for the sitcom Ned and Stacy.
That's right.
How'd that
Uh,
work out for him?
I don't know. We'll have to watch it sometime.
I know
didn't
what
go
my
that far.
pilot's gonna be. I'm kidding.
No, I remember Ned and Stacy lasting a good bit, so I don't think it was something that crashed
Looks
and
like
burned.
almost 2 seasons. No, well, it depends on how you look at it. This says it ran from 95 to 2017. That's a lie. It
That's
ran for
incorrect.
it ran for
Yeah.
2 seasons,
So
46
that's what all
episodes.
these streaming services are for. So we could say our seasons lasted forever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'd be like, my show was on the air for 40 years.
My show's still on.
Yep.
It's still airing today.
Okay. And 3 other actors I want to mention, just they don't come up in this episode, but a couple of them came up in the holiday episode that we watched and didn't cover, but we'll probably cover some other time. First of all, Tony Shalhoub
Tony
as
Shalhoub.
Antonio Scarpacci.
I never watched. Was it Monk? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never watched that. So he's just forever. He's just forever Antonio. There's nothing else.
I knew him from this, and then when he showed up in Men in Black, I was like, "What's Antonio
yeah.
doing?" in this?" Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
when you're really young, you think like that's his normal voice and like his
Yeah.
normal affectation, and then you
Yup.
see him in something else. It's like seeing Bronson Pinchot for the first time, not as Balky,
right.
and like your
Mhm.
Very
brain
much
can't
so.
process that at first. You're just
Mhm.
like, no, this sound and this image do not go together.
Yeah.
That was what it
Mhm.
was like seeing Tony Shalhoub as anybody other than Antonio when I was
Right.
younger.
And Tony Shalhoub also is one of those chameleons or one of those people they hire to play like 15 different ethnicities, like Lou Diamond
Right.
Phillips.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
they just like you
Yeah.
can be so many things. Like, okay, that's
Uh-huh.
kind of where
Sure.
he lands. Lou Diamond
And,
Phillips, can you play a Hungarian? I mean, yeah, why not?
Yeah.
and I've got to say,
Okay.
shout out to probably one of my favorite roles of his was in Galaxy Quest. Just the
Mhm.
way he played that.
Oh,
So
he was
good.
great.
And here's the thing. Here's how good he was. He was a guest uh, on season 2 of this show. It's just a waiter. The producers were so impressed that they brought him on as Antonio in season 3 from then on.
Amazing.
So that's how good he was, and they managed to incorporate it into the role too. Like so,
That's great.
but yeah, Antonio was the Italian immigrant that owns and operates a taxi service to and from the airport. So there's a great joke in the holiday episode about what are the chances of me finding you, and he's like, in this town, 1 in 4.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
about to say
that's
you don't need a lot of
badass.
taxis in Nantucket, I don't think.
Mhm.
No.
No.
It's not a very big island.
No, 50 square miles is not a lot of area to cover.
Mhm.
No. And that's not even
Uh,
the amount. I mean, 50 square miles, and then you got to think about the roads. You know,
Right.
like
Yeah.
there are less
Mhm.
roads than
When
there
they
are
are-
square miles.
And they are all unbelievably narrow. And a lot of the taxis are like the last. I mean, I haven't been there. Like I was there 20 years ago. And we had to take a taxi somewhere, and it was a like a Ford Expedition, and the road like it was wild, absolutely
the width
wild.
of the
It
road.
was the width of the road.
Well, I mean, there's New England roads. They didn't make them big for the horse and buggy.
Yeah, but this is like they never updated anything.
No infrastructure. Just we
None.
paved it, sort of.
Cobblestones mostly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
2 more actresses I want to mention real quick. Farrah Fork came on season 4 as Alex Lambert, a helicopter pilot who starts running a tour business from the island. Became Brian's love interest. She was a pretty significant character there for a while. And then also Amy Yazbek joined in season 6 as Casey Chapel, Helen's older snobbish sister. And it's funny because Helen makes mention of in this first episode about how they moved from Texas. Apparently, Helen kept her accent, and Casey dropped it as soon as they got here.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, why not?
Mhm.
Sure. That's
I
a good
mean,
way to
yeah,
just
if you can't
hand
do
wave
it,
that away.
yeah, you can't do the accent, then don't do it.
yep. Um, so as we talked about before too, this show was created and produced by Cheers veterans David Angel or Angle, however you pronounce it, Peter Casey and David Lee. Um, they made this and then would later go on to make Frasier. So this was between Cheers and Frasier. Um, but because they were involved, you had so many of the Cheers cast and Frasier cast show up. And I think, like Amy said, they're all in the same
In the same
universe.
universe.
Yeah.
There's a lot less crossover with Wings. There's not none. But there's less crossover, obviously, than Frasier, because Frasier was just in Cheers.
Right.
But I guess there's at least one episode of Wings where like some of them come over from the mainland. I forget who it is, but
yeah. So it ran on NBC, but it was produced by Paramount CBS. And after its initial run, it definitely had reruns on USA Network, Nick at Night, and TV Land. You know, one other thing I remember about Wings is it being the butt of jokes and Animaniacs a lot for some reason. For whatever reason, the writers on that show seem to think Wings lasted too long.
They love some Wings. Oh, thought it lasted too long. Okay. I mean, it is a sitcom about a small airport on Nantucket.
Right.
Like, how are you going to stretch it? I don't know.
Right. And to cover all the bases, the theme of the show was actually a shortened version of the final movement from Franz Schubert's Piano Sonata number 20 in A major, D.
That's good to know.
That's what we got to like. That's podcasters been looking for that royalty-free music. We got to get back into the classics.
You got to go way back.
I don't know
Way
if
back.
anybody gets the royalties, but he got screen credit as the theme composer every episode.
Outstanding.
Perfect.
It was very. I was not ready for a comedy show based on the intro theme when it came on. I'm like, this is some. This sounds like a daytime soap kind of theme. Not my.
It does have
time
that
for a
feel,
party
doesn't it?
evening. Yeah, it's very relaxed. And then I'll let Audie talk about the way the show opened, but it led into another. I don't know if this is a comedy yet kind of thing.
Right. One other thing to mention, Wings is one of those shows that they attempted a version of it in Great Britain, and it made it as far as the pilot episode and no further.
I couldn't see this working in the UK.
It's a small private airport on the Isle of Man.
Yeah, right. Like
that's
poor.
pretty
What
much
are we
what
doing?
they did. Like
Yeah.
they changed a couple names here and there, a couple names, not many of them. Everything was kind of the same. You can find the first few minutes of it on the YouTubes or something. That's all that ever made it out anywhere, apparently.
Oh boy.
That's great.
So, but for this episode, we're talking about season 1, episode 1, the pilot episode of Wings called Legacy. And it starts out with our buddy Joe Hackett, coming in, looking at his airplane, and getting a little too friendly with it, shall we say.
I don't want to get on that plane. I don't want to fly with that man. I don't. Nope.
I just
I'm
love
not
that he
putting my
kissed
lips
it.
on anything.
No, I just love that he kissed it and said, "God, you're beautiful." And there, right there is Lowell. Thank you. I think this opening scene really sums up the entirety of this show between Joe and Lowell.
Yeah.
And just what we're in for. Because he's talking romantic about it. You know, every time I fly, I come back a little sure there's a God. And Lowell's response is, I go down to the dump and shoot rats.
It's so good. It's
Like,
so good.
Okay.
It's so dramatic. And then
Uh-huh.
it's just, then that pops in. I'm like, all right, I'm in. Let's go.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's that delivery as Lowell that just
Yeah.
like he's just so matter of fact, deadpan with it, and it's perfect.
Mm-hmm. So we get the lovely Schubert intro. And then we come to the main stage for what happens on this show most of the time, the actual airport itself, terminal. Um, and we get uh, our lovely Faye uh, letting everybody know the plane is back. Um, and I love that she talks to anybody going to greet people um, to just, you know, due to one particularly nasty incident, best to wait for the propellers to come to a complete stop before you go out there.
That was good. Those
You
good
see, in the
advice.
before times for the young people, in the before times, you can meet people at the airport. Uh,
like at
that
the
was
gate.
that was a whole thing. Yeah, at the
Well,
gate.
Without a
and
ticket.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and this is even like it's barely an airport. It's an
it is barely
airfield.
an air. Yeah,
There's a
Uh-huh.
shack with a couple
yeah,
of ticket counters and a lunch counter in it. Like
yeah.
Mhm.
there's no
Now I will
jetway
say that
because
it's
all the planes are small.
yeah. The Nantucket airport is a little nicer than you would expect for its size, just because of the amount of money that
Oh, I'm sure.
lands on the island. But
I do have to say
because if
one
you're
thing
flying to
about
the island, you've got money.
I got to say one thing about Faye. Because when I saw Faye and I heard Faye talk, she sounds almost identical to the lady who played the social worker in Miss Doubtfire, Polly Holiday. I think
Oh
that's her
yeah.
name. Like, if you close your eyes, they have the same
Yeah.
voice. It's this, and I was
Yeah.
like,
Mhm.
is that? That doesn't look at all like that lady. It doesn't look like that lady because it's
'Cause
not.
it's
But
not.
it sounds an awful lot like her. I don't know if it's like a early 90s old lady voice they just knew how to use,
Mhm.
but there is definitely something going on there.
Or they went to the same acting school 50 years ago or something.
Yeah. Yeah. They're both graduates of Juilliard,
Mhm.
but old lady Juilliard or
Old
something.
lady
I
Juilliard.
don't know.
Mhm. So,
Oh yeah, it's Anne Haney is who you're talking about.
That's who I'm thinking
Mhm.
about. I just picked the
Yeah,
first
she was.
old lady on the IMDb list that looked
Yeah,
like her.
no, she was also Greta in Liar Liar.
That's right.
That's
And
the other thing I
now
think
I
of her
see
in.
her. Okay. Yep.
so,
That's who she sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
so then Joe walks in, asks Faye how much time he has, and he's the only pilot for this one airline, so he's got a few minutes, just a few minutes. Um, he's walking in, and Roy shows up and says he had some mail for Joe delivered to him by mistake. And he's had it about a week or so. He's just now getting around to it. And
There's like
apparently,
one mail carrier on Nantucket and knows everyone. Like I don't. Like, how are we misdelivering mail?
hmm well, you got to have a conceit to get this story going.
Yeah.
Uh, so apparently, it was a letter from the lawyer handling Joe's father's estate because he passed away, I guess, recently. They don't really say much about how how soon or how long it's been since his dad has passed away.
Especially with the implication that he hasn't seen his brother.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But like, surely, I don't know. That was all kind of weird
hmm
because
But
Brian's like a lot of things, but I feel like he would have gone to his father's funeral.
yes, there would have been some kind of
Yeah.
meeting there, but apparently, the letter from their father says the brothers have to open the package together. And we also learned that apparently Joe's brother Brian ran off with his fiancee. Um, what's her name? Carol.
Carol the
Carol.
pig.
Carol the
Mhm.
pig.
Um, so, um, but Helen's just like, get over it, Joe. Call your brother. You need to do it. Um, so we get the first dynamics of what's going to be a mainstay in this series is Helen being the go-between between Joe and Brian and bringing them together or breaking them up, depending on what's necessary. And I love the next scene because I had to look it up and be like, oh wow, this even makes me feel old. So we got Roy at the counter. Kids, we're gonna have to do some serious explaining for this joke. Saying, I I've given it all the time I can, but Deborah Norville just doesn't have the humanity Jane Pauley had.
There, we can't.
Mm.
It's too much. It's too much.
Okay, look up Deborah Norville. Look up Jane Pauley and the Today Show. That's
There's
what
a
he's
few
talking about.
very dated jokes, like
Yeah.
micro minute
Mm-hmm.
dated jokes in this.
See, kids, there was this show called Today that people paid attention to. It was important. You got news.
I
other
watched the
stuff.
Today Show every morning through high
I
school.
went to the Today Show. Like I did the outside the
Ooh.
window. I
Oh,
did that
nice.
once.
Nice.
It was
What?
very cold. It was like January.
Yeah,
It's
I have no
not the
interest
time
in
to do
doing
it.
that, but I did watch
I
the
shook
show a lot.
I shook Al Roker's hand.
What?
Okay, now that's
Yeah,
cool.
because he
That's
came out
cool.
because they were like, we're not doing anything outside because it's too cold, but they did like walk through.
Dang, that's cool.
hands.
Al Roker
Yeah.
seems like an all right guy. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
Mhm.
you can't be a weatherman and be a butthole like you're a weatherman.
Yep.
Yeah. You're just like guessing at best.
Yeah, you're a professional guesser.
Professional educated guesser.
How's the weather, Ollie? It's gonna rain.
Oh, don't make me get into it. Lewis Black had a great bit about the weather, and actually Al Roker is in it,
Oh,
and it's choice.
Nice.
Let's just put it that way.
Nice. So, Roy was a Jane Pauley man. Helen tells him to get over it. He's like, I can't. She's like, Jelly Donut to shut up. He's like, Jane who? And then in walks Brian Hackett.
Okay, this bit was pretty good. This was real
Oh my
good.
gosh, this was
This
amazing.
was real good.
Because Brian obviously flew in on Roy's airline because he wasn't going to fly in with his brother. Immediately asks who the owner is and tells him how great his airline was. Because, I mean, you know, most people can't get away with shortchanging their passengers like this.
I've never seen
know?
such cost-cutting measures.
I love
I mean,
just not having the life preservers. Just tell them they're under
Yeah,
the seat. No
just
one
tell 'em
looks
they're under
anyway.
No one looks.
and a pilot
That's
fresh
so
out of flight
smart.
school, you know?
I
I even
come
had
up
drinks with him
them.
right before the flight. It was great.
Oh,
And Roy's
Fresh
just
off
really
eye surgery. I mean, how often do you
how
have to
often do
look
you
left?
look left?
Mm-hmm.
So good.
And Roy's just like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And
It's so
Joe
great.
is upstairs just like, hey Brian. So
Oh.
we finally get their interaction. And see how they come together. Brian immediately calls Joe out on looking tired. You know, running the office, flying everything, and this is where we get the great bit about, you know, one day if you keep doing this, you're going to end up like Howard Hughes. um, and what I love about this joke is not only the part Travis talked about before, you know, locked up in a hotel room, sitting on a Kleenex, sucking applesauce through a straw. Lowell's response, isn't that something? All that money and his hobbies are the same as mine. And Brian's like, really? He also took toenail clippings and kept them in a mason jar. And Lowell's like, this is uncanny.
And just walks away.
It's like,
It's so good.
just that one little follow up. Like, okay.
Amazing.
And Helen sees Brian, and this is where we get the whole, hey, Helen was fat before, and now she's not.
Yeah.
And we get the line about her playing the cello. Brian says, wasn't that cello supposed to get you off this island? And she's like, it will someday. And then Joe asks about Carol. And Brian's like, yeah, she's fine. They get into it a little bit. They're like, okay, are we okay? We're okay. We're okay. We're okay.
I said I.
And so they just decide to open their dad's package because Brian has this wild idea that somehow their dad was rich and is leaving them a bunch of money. Um, and so uh, the key was to a safety deposit box, and he sends Joe out to go find it or to go for it, and he'll be right behind him. And this is where we get the fact that Brian apparently isn't with Carol after all. We get a little payoff later, but he calls her for whatever reason, hoping she'll come back.
Make
Ooh.
them back. The classic.
Yep.
Gotta have it.
Maybe if I get money, she'll come back to me.
So they go to the safety deposit box to the bank in town, and apparently it's another key that they found to a P.O. box in Boston. So the brothers, Joe's got a flight, so they go ahead and head over to Boston. Next scene, we've come back from Boston, and Brian is not happy.
I
At
love
all.
the passenger during
Right?
this
So
scene
good.
too.
Yeah.
I half expected it to be an air marshal. like if we did this, if this was today, right? Like that man would be an air marshal and they would both be in just like a heap of trouble.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah.
But
He did. The actor did look like someone else to me, and I looked it up, and it wasn't him. I thought it was a guy who was in The Rock. They have a very similar face shape.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. It was not him. But I loved the line about when because the guy's getting more and more nervous as it goes, and then when he's trying to offer Brian the job and Brian doesn't want it, he's like, "I'll give you a job. You want a job? I'll get you a job. Doesn't matter."
Right. Because Brian is talking upset and very crazy for somebody who's sitting right next to the pilot of the airplane. And that passenger's like, I'm very nervous. And it's great when they get back
Because
down
it's
to the
basically a
ground.
minivan with wings.
Right.
Like this is
Oh,
what this
yeah.
airplane is.
Mhm. And I love when they finally get back and he's the first one through the door, which means he was the first one off that airplane and just wiping sweat off his face.
Oh yeah, no, he sprint walked from that airplane into the airport.
Mm-hmm. So we get back to the airport and they ask him about what happened. And Brian, lets them know it was they had to go to another bank, and another bank, 2 bus stations, a PO box, train depot, and a kennel for one more key. And they're not sure to what. And Brian's complaining because he thought he was going to get all this money. And Joe, in his anger, is like, well, at least you have Carol. And Brian's like, she left me for another guy. To which Joe says, that pig.
Yeah.
Like, Joe was all defending Carol all throughout this episode until then.
Even like right before that too, Brian telling,
Mhm.
saying all the stuff about how she's kind and she's generous and all this. She left me for another guy. That pig.
It really does just
Mhm.
go right up to the Full House ending, like line, just right up to it, and then it
Yeah.
jokes you back out of it.
Yeah.
But there for a
Yeah.
minute, I was like, I can't decide if we're gonna be a drama or a comedy. I'm real
Mhm.
lost in the tone. It's almost like they were fishing for what kind of tone they really wanted to chase here, and
Yeah.
and maybe that's what you do in a pilot. You just kind of see like, what are we doing with these characters? Where do we want them to go? Let's test a few things. But man, I
Yeah.
had a little bit of whiplash in a couple spots this episode where I'm like,
Yeah.
hold on a minute. Jeez, pick a lane, get in it.
Yep.
Because when Brian walked on the scene, I was like, okay, we've got all right, just jokes, wisecracking left to right. They're all funny, they're all hitting. And then we got the heartfelt moment, and I was like, I don't know if I'm buying this, and I'm uncomfortable with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I was at the end there.
And I think some of that probably comes from these guys having already created Cheers and
Yeah.
already having done that with Cheers. I think there's something to, hey, we know how to do this. Let's just do it this way. But it doesn't work as well when you don't know those characters as well and aren't as in
Yeah.
love with them yet.
Yeah, and they
Yeah,
let
that
some
kind of thing takes time.
silences. They let some silences hang in the air a little too long. I think the
Mhm.
pacing was off for some of those scenes where I'm like, I can hear his feet shuffling for like 5 seconds before anything happens. This is
Mhm.
too long of a dramatic moment. I'm not sure what to
Right.
do with it. So I'm glad they worked it out. But yeah, I can see that now when you bring up Cheers again. Like
Yeah.
but Cheers,
Mhm.
you really have to earn moments like that
Yep.
over time,
Right.
and they needed more time to figure out how to make that work and make us buy it.
We missed the part where Brian sexually harassed the
Oh, we did.
passenger. It was
Hooters.
not. It was.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Wow. Yeah. I'm glad
Again, they're
that we
kind of they were
dialed
setting him
that
up to
in.
be they were setting him up to be a
Uh-huh.
lot more of like a kind of skeezy creeper guy
Yeah.
Mhm.
than he ended up being. I mean, they softened a lot of that
Yeah.
as the show
Good.
went on.
Because
Mhm.
it was not.
I wouldn't say we missed it as much as like I was trying to forget it.
Yeah.
You know.
It was just. It was
Um,
very a lot.
Yeah,
mhm.
there's subtlety, and then there's
Then there
there's
was
whatever
that.
that was.
Like, what are you
Yeah.
even doing? Like, what? It was
It
wild.
didn't move the plot forward. It didn't do anything
No.
but make Brian look like a skeezy guy, and that was the wrong
Right.
look.
Mhm.
It's not what
Right.
we wanted.
Right, because we already had we had the conversation, or we have at some point, like when he's talking to Joe about like, oh, Helen, huh, and that would have been
Right.
plenty. Like
Yeah,
that would have been
Mhm.
fine. That
tells
we
you everything you
understand what
need.
this means.
Yeah, we get it. And then
It
just the blatant
Yeah.
was
catcalling
wild.
was too much.
The blatant catcalling was too much, but the Helen joke I did actually think was pretty funny because
Mhm.
here's Brian who hasn't seen her in a long
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
and he's telling Joe, and Joe's like, "Come on, she's like family. She's like a little
our
sister." And he's like, "I think it's about time I gave that tyke a bath,"
Hey,
and just gets
Mhm.
grabbed and yanked into the
Yeah.
office.
Yeah, that was
that was pretty
okay.
funny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was
Mhm.
met with disapproval by another character, so you're like, "Oh, okay, there's upstanding humans in this world. He's
Meanwhile, it's
goofing
just this
around."
poor woman.
Yeah.
This poor woman just trying to get on a plane.
She just
Yeah.
wants to get on a
Mhm.
plane.
And then they have to get on the plane. Then they get on, like, presumably, they're
The
now
plane
on
that
this then with
yeah.
wings together.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, it's not gonna happen.
I will say I did notice like right away Steven Weber and Tim Daly had great chemistry.
Oh
Sure.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Their jokes were great. I mean, they were playing off each other really well. I loved the whole "you labeled this drawer empty." You took
So
the
good.
time to create the
Mhm.
label.
I love
And
that
then they're
a
walking out
lot.
and he puts something in it just to drive him nuts.
That's gonna kill him.
Oh yeah. That was really good.
Hmm. Like again, this is one of those shows that has so many jokes. I couldn't catalog them all. It's like I've got to figure out most of this plot, and not take every single joke down, but a lot of good ones in there. Um, so Faye actually recognizes the key, and it actually happens to be to one of the lockers in the airport. So
Convenient.
Lowell happens to be up there, so they throw him the key. He gets the locker open, and there's a suitcase in there. And they're like, "Well, drop it down." He's like, "I just want you to know the scratch was
This
on
is the
this
best
suitcase."
part.
Well, I love that Lowell was on the phone with his mom on the payphone,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and they go to toss him up the key. He's like, "Hang on, mom," and just lets the
Just
receiver
hangs it.
hang
Mm-hmm.
while he gets the thing out of there. It was so
Want you to
good.
know it's had a scratch already. So good.
Yep. So they drop down the suitcase. They finally open it up, and what pops out? Snakes. The
Snakes.
little
Yep.
Canned snakes.
can of snakes.
Peanut brittle.
Yep.
Can of snakes.
But like 20 of them just packed in this suitcase. Um, and it seems like, according to Brian, that their dad is funnier dead than Joe is alive.
That was pretty good and brutal.
Uh-huh. And the only thing left in the suitcase was a picture of Joe and Brian by the lake as kids, and says, "You're rich." And they realize that this was all a wild goose chase to get them back together as brothers.
And that was fine. And we could have
Mhm.
ended it there.
Could have.
Yeah.
I think we should. It should just end there. It just ends
Yeah.
there.
Well, it ends
It just
there.
ends there.
Just them, poking fun at each other and how they looked when they were kids. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
Ears that look like
And
hubcaps.
and Brian takes the job with Joe and
Great.
he's gonna start working there. That's fine. Yeah, that's where
That's
it is.
it. And nothing else happened.
Nothing.
That is exactly how it happened.
About
I will say though, again, the chemistry between the two of them, because Brian is getting ready to leave. Joe decides he's going to offer him the job
Yeah.
working at the airline.
Yeah.
And Brian initially turns him down, but then as they're looking at the picture and they start ribbing each other for the way they look in the photo, while also agreeing that Brian will come work with Joe at the airline in the middle of it. Like, what are with those shorts? I mean, come on, they're pulled up to your armpits. By the way, is that job still available?
Yeah.
Like, loves that. That was some great kind of
That's
almost
good.
Abbott and Costello type, joke telling kind of routine, and I really enjoyed that.
Yep.
And then that's when the episode ended.
That's exactly it. Nothing about whales or anything.
No.
Nope.
Unfortunately.
So, okay. Okay. So that was the pilot to Wings. So, what do we think?
They
I-
fixed a lot.
They did.
They did.
Yeah,
But I'm glad.
there's almost a part of me that thinks at some point in our future we should take pilot and then finale and just look at them against each other of different shows, or even pilot and then mid run, just to kind of get a feel for
like
Sure.
pilot highest rated episode.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Just maybe just see what we realize. Oh man, they really modified a lot about that show versus a little, because I feel like this one, the Christmas episode we watched, that will never be heard about on this show, at least for a while. It was very different in tone and activity.
And it was what I remembered.
Right.
The show being.
Yeah. Because even Thomas Hayden Church's Lowell was not quite as dumb in the Christmas episode as he plays here, but still, still kind of the goofball, but not to that degree of like he's out back chewing rocks. There was more to him. There was more substance. So it's, I mean, but I dug the show, and I dug the show. The Christmas episode we went. I thought it was great. I would watch more Wings. This is another one I could throw on in the background and just enjoy.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. There is a moment of Wings that for whatever reason has been seared into the synapses of my brain, and it will never go away. And I have no idea what episode it was from. And I want to say it was, I can't remember which character was doing the complaining, but it had some complaint from either Helen, Alex, or Amy Yazbek's character, Carol. Casey. It was probably Helen though, but it had something to do with like men and being like just idiots and all this and having single syllable conversations. And it literally goes from her saying that to Lowell with a bowl of soup. And he goes, good soup. Hot. And so like that line, that just delivery of Thomas Hayden Church just being like, good soup, hot, is plays in my head on a daily basis.
It's so good. He's so good. He's so good.
He really, really is. I will find that. I will make a clip of it. I will send it to you so you can see it, and then you can share in what happens in my brain.
Please do.
Nice.
Anytime you have soup.
Anytime I have soup.
Yep. Nice. So, did we get any feedback on this at all?
We did not in the emails. I got nothing in the emails this time. But it's Christmas. People are busy,
Right.
Sending
We are
emails
busy.
hard, requires like a computer.
I got one response on the threads from our buddy Bill Fairchild, just saying he adored the show. So,
Hey, Bill.
Mr. Run Jump Stomp himself.
Over there on Nerd Nest on YouTube.
Nerd Nest, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm still jealous of his ability to produce things. It's incredible.
Yeah. He's actually about to start a thing where he talks about that too. So I think he's doing a second channel talking about his production and stuff.
Well,
Very
take this
cool.
free
There you go.
publicity, Bill. You're welcome.
Yeah. You're welcome, Bill. But if you do have any response, did you watch Wings? Did you watch the beginning of it or through the show? What did you think of it? You can always send your feedback to us at thosewerethedayshow@gmail.com. You can reply to us on Twitter, Those Days Show. You can follow us on all the various social medias and definitely strike up a convo with us about it. You can join the Two Dorks Discord and come talk to a bunch of dorks and nerds about all kinds of stuff. Um, and you'll have to let us know what you think of the next show we're watching, which Steven is bringing to us.
I am, and I did not intend this because I did not know until we began talking at the top of this episode that these shows were related.
Oh,
But
snap.
we are going right back to New England with the pilot episode of one of my favorite shows, Cheers.
Cheers.
I literally had no idea that these shows were in the same universe at all. And I just decided I'm not pivoting. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna
No.
plant my
Good.
stake in
No,
the
don't pivot.
ground, and we are going to a little bar where everybody knows your name. That's playing on
Nice.
Hulu. If you have a Hulu subscription, there's also Pluto TV. I think it's free with ads. Handful of places you can find this show. You should definitely watch Cheers, and you should definitely let me know what you think of it at those addresses and tweets and whatnot that Audie just mentioned, because we'd love to read your feedback. I know you watch Cheers. Everybody watched Cheers. So hit us up and give us your thoughts. It's important.
Yes. Oh man, now I'm really excited after talking
Yeah.
about this show with the makers of it and stuff.
Yeah. Gonna
That'll
be
fun.
good.
Yeah, it is. All right. Well, thank you for flying with Those Were the Days. On behalf of the whole crew, Stephen, Travis, Amy, and myself, we hope you enjoyed your flight down TV's memory lane in the skies. For your safety and the safety of those around you, please remain seated until we are parked at the gate. Use caution when opening the overhead compartments, as articles may have shifted during flight. Have a great time at your destination, and we'll see you next time on Those Were the Days.
Good soup. Hot.
This is great. Awesome.